This is the Angel Connect podcast series, episode number 19B as in Bravo, an interview with Victor Elgohary. Not only is he a CPA, but he's also an aerospace and oil field engineer, has been a lawyer, and in these industries he's been involved with angel investing for nearly a decade. An interview with Victor Elgohary. And as such, he's a financial executive and an attorney with a broad experience in all aspects of business matters, including litigation, accounting, valuation, contract CFO for small companies, and has also had experience in turnarounds, financial restructuring, as well as being a CFO. So in this case, Hall Martin, who is the principal of the Angel Connect podcast series, interviews Victor Elgohary over the Skype network and is dealing with him in strategies for successful angel investing, including not only the hard work, the due diligence, but also what kind of models are used, and a discussion of technology with angel portals online, as well as crowdfunding, and it's going to be very interesting. So let's listen into this interview where Hall Martin discusses these topics with Victor Elgohary. So let's listen in.
This is the Angel Connect program. My name is Hall T. Martin, and today we have with us Victor. Victor, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your angel investing background?
Well, I've had a legal and a CPA practice for many years, helping both corporate clients and individuals with a broad variety of legal and financial issues. And in a prior career, I was an engineer designing equipment and systems in both the aerospace and oil field services industry. I got involved in angel investing about, maybe 8-9 years ago, and got involved with angel groups. And as I understood how it worked, I ended up helping start an angel investment fund with 67 other co-investors.
Well, great. So you've seen quite a bit in angel investing over the years. What are the lessons you've learned from angel investing? You've been around the block more than a couple of times. People listening to this are often first-time angel investors, even experienced angel investors. But what lessons would you like to share with others?
Oh, there's so many. It's been rather interesting. First lesson, it's hard. In fact, it's really hard when it's done correctly. It takes a deep understanding of a lot of different and diverse skill sets. You need to be well-versed in finance. You need to have a reasonable legal background to how things are done, and you ultimately have to have a deep knowledge of the industry the company is trying to crack into or reinvent. The second big lesson I've learned, it's much more time-consuming than I had originally envisioned. And, of course, many people say, well, why is that? Well, first of all, the best deals that will earn appropriate risk-adjusted returns will never come knocking on the average angel investor's or angel group's door. And they're also not likely going to be found in an angel's or angel group's geographic backyard. You have to go look for them. That involves building your network to the point that people know that you're the person or the group to come to, and that you can get the stuff done. And once you get that established, which takes quite a bit of time, then you have to go through hundreds of deals just to find a few possible candidates. And that's pretty time-consuming in itself. And then once you get past that and you have picked some potential candidates, then you got to go through the due diligence on the company or companies that you've selected. You got to look at the people, you got to look at their customers, you got to look at the industry and the business premise itself. And then when you're done with all that, if that's not enough work, then as the lead investor, you should be really working the deal as part of the management team, bringing your expertise to bear on making the company and the team a success. So those are kind of the two big lessons so far that I've picked up as a general rule.
So it's more than just showing up to a party and writing a check and hoping for the best. It really is rolling up your sleeves and going at things you really know something about. Do you have any examples of how, someone with industry expertise really makes a difference and it really moves the needle with these guys?
A little caveat there on your comment. I think you can write a check and not have to get and roll up your sleeves, but if you are one of those, then you're not only betting on the team, but you're betting on the lead investor. And we can talk more about that later. But in terms of expertise that you need to bring to the table that I've seen, knowing the industry is important because at the end of the day, you don't get paid until there's an exit. And in order to develop the exit, you need to know the industry and the players. And before you even write the check, you should have some kind of vision of who's actually going to buy you out as the investor. And if you don't know that, then I would question why you're getting into it to begin with. And that also folds into the concept of when you write the check, as another famous angel investor who's been in the business for decades, Mr. John Houston, he has the term we call exit congruence. And what he means by that is he's saying, look, if you meet with the team that's doing the really hard work day in and day out, the team and the investor group, they need to agree on what an exit is. Are we selling to a strategic? What are we doing? Because a lot of times the team just wants to build their own company and has visions of IPO, which is typically not going to happen, and it's typically not beneficial for the angel to go that whole route. So those are some of the things, though, that the investor needs to think about.
Yeah, it's quite daunting then to go through and find the right deal, find the right team, find someone with an exit, and then align with industry expertise. So it really is a needle in a haystack, it sounds like. Some groups actually try to solve that with funds. They put a fund together and they get 10 deals or 20 deals, and then now you've got, diversification. Something's going to hit somewhere, and I see that a lot. Angel investors used to bring $50K into the room and hand it to one group. Now they bring $50K in and they spread $10K across each of 5 deals, hoping that one of them's going to take off. What's your take on funds?
One of the reasons that I promoted the fund concept was that you are going to fail by definition if you're only going to invest, if you only have $50,000-$60,000 and you're only going to make a bet on 2 or 3 of them. And the reason for that, as I expounded over the years, as I got 67 other people to join me in this effort, I said, look, if you're going to do what is espoused as common knowledge, or you got to invest in at least 10 to 20 deals and have a portfolio of companies. And the reason for that is a majority of them will either fail or flatline. And there's really only going to be 1 or 2 that's going to pay you back on all the rest and make you a risk-adjusted return. So working backwards, if the average deal is a $25,000 or $50,000 check, and you got to do 10 to 20 of those, if you're doing it by yourself, that means you probably need $500,000 to $1 million just to get started. And then what you learn is on follow-ons, you better have some more money to put into the ones that are doing well. And so if you extend that premise a little further, what you do if you're doing proper portfolio management, you shouldn't really be putting all your eggs in this particular genre of investments because it's high risk. So if you do proper portfolio management, you learn that you really should only be putting 2 to 5% of your total net worth into this type of stuff. And so when you do the math and you divide that out, if you're doing it all by yourself, you need to be having a net worth into the 7 or 8 figures in order to do this properly. So knowing that most folks in the angel groups don't have that kind of heft. The premise of the fund was you can put a proper amount of capital to work to get that diversification, and you get to learn how it works in the process as well. So that was the basic premise of the fund that I put together.
What's your take on funds now as far as most people are just putting money in because there's professional management or there's dedicated management or there's something there that says there's going to be proper due diligence up front. And then, of course, you get diversification, you get exposure to 10, 15, 20 deals or more as opposed to just 1, 2, or 3 that you're doing on your own in the angel room. What's your experience based on that?
Well, my experience is that many people in the fund are in there and they're taking a free ride because they never had an interest in doing any of the work or really learning. And so what happens is a small handful of people do most of the work, and these funds are so small they really can't afford salaries, they can't afford much of anything, and so the few people that are willing to do it are doing it for free and out of passion and everything else. And I think over the long term that's not sustainable. And so that's why small funds really don't exist absent everybody participating at some level and at some point. So the bigger funds that, can raise tens of millions of dollars, they have the ability to, hire employees and do that kind of thing, because then there's a percentage of the total fund. You can still get a reasonable return. Tiny funds that are a couple $1 million, they have to rely on volunteer work, and volunteer work by definition is whatever anybody wants to do, and it is oftentimes inadequate.
Well, that reminds me of an Angel Capital Association meeting I went to several years ago. The topic was funds. Everybody in the room was on a fund or had a fund in their group, and they went around and everybody explained it, and virtually every single one of them ended it with, and it's a labor of love, which means that there's not enough management fees or carry or anything to really compensate people properly. And if somebody really had a passion and really did a labor of love, then it's probably going to be a good result. Those who didn't probably was not going to be. But it was pretty well universal. There's not enough money in these $2 million funds to pay anybody to do true professional due diligence on it.
Well, I would put a caveat on that, because the vision for the fund that I helped start, there are 67 individuals just like me who have a broad variety of expertise. We have people with specific legal expertise. We have people with a broad variety of industry expertise, a broad variety of functional expertise. And so if everybody in a fund, in these small ones that are set up as participatory in nature, if everybody in the fund knows everybody else and they know their basic skill sets, then what you can do is, when there's a particular issue with a particular company, you can quickly go to one of the members of your fund and you can say, look, this portfolio company has this particular issue. Are you willing to, if we frame the problem, can you do a little bit of work and help us develop an answer to present to solve the issue? And so then everybody, kind of pays their bus fare, if you will, and that's their little contribution to the total effort. And it's much easier than, asking someone that has no legal background, says, well, what do you think about this legal problem? Well, they're not going to have an answer, and it's going to take them forever to research it if they even have any interest in doing so. But if I tap you for what you already have a good, solid foundation on and a background in, you're probably going to be willing to help just because you signed up for that, and you want to learn more, and you participate.
Well, some funds do that, I believe. They, you mentioned several funds a while back that when they write the check, they're somewhat being, they're joining the team to help with sales or marketing or product development or some aspect. And if you help, you actually get more of a return than those who just, sit on the bus and see where it goes. Do you see a fund model that would work in that direction where you compensate people for doing it with extra carry or return or something of that nature?
In theory, that sounds like a great idea, but my initial knee-jerk reaction when I ponder that kind of stuff is it just makes putting the deal together that much harder. And so now I got to keep track of who did what and who spent more time than the other. To me, I think a better and simpler approach is more of a pay it forward. And it would go something like this. If I'm the lead investor and I find a deal that I really think is good and I think I can contribute and, I'm going to write a check, I'll let a bunch of other folks in my group or in my connections, I'm going to let them tag along. And they believe in my expertise, they believe in the due diligence that I did, and they generally understand the premise of what the company is trying to achieve, and so they tag along. On the flip side, I let them tag along on the deal that I intend to work on, and I hope that in the future, when the people that are tagging along with me as investors, when they find their deal and I have a belief in their expertise and the stuff that they find, I get to tag along on their deal. So it's kind of more of a pay it forward, and I'm not going to get into, well, I did more work on this than the other. It's a mutually beneficial relationship that has to develop over time. I think that's ultimately going to be how angel groups have to function in the future.
Well, that's a good point. Where are angel groups going? I was actually in angel groups back in the 90s, and back then it was a sponsorship model. The lawyers and accountants paid big dollars to fund the meetups, and then investors put money in. And then to the .com world, it shifted to be more of a membership model. Every member put in money to pay for the group setting and the meetings and so forth. But it seems like that model is evolving and emerging as well, especially with crowdfunding and other things coming out. What do you think the next angel group model will look like?
Well, there's currently two models, and they've been around forever. There's the membership model, which we've seen for the better part of 10 to 20 years, and it's everybody pays a membership fee, and it just gets you in the front door, and it pays all the overhead, and volunteers find deals that they run into, and they bring them to the group, and they go, look what I found. A more recent model that some people have morphed into, for example, on the East Coast in Boston, is if you're a member of the group itself is a fund. And if you're a member of the group, you're in the fund by definition. We've seen it in Boston, we've seen it in Ohio. And then there's the dual model where, for example, at TCA, you can be a member of TCA, but you can also be an investor in their fund if you're a member of TCA, and even if you're not. But back to the membership model, 10 or 15 years ago, if you were a company looking for money, you didn't have a whole lot of places to go. You could go to the VC, and the VC had certain expectations, and usually it wasn't seed funding, so you'd have to go to an angel group, and there wasn't any other places to go. Well, that's changing now. There's a whole lot of other places to go, and it's become quite fashionable to do this kind of investing. So everybody thinks they're an angel investor. You can watch Shark Tank all day, every day on TV if you're interested. That's how popular it's become. But if there's more competition, that means the angel group can't just sit there and expect the best deals to show up at its doorstep. That what has to happen is that the money that the angel group raises in terms of membership has to be used to go look for deals. You can't use it just to pay for administration and to have a nice breakfast or a dinner. It's fundamentally changing, and so the question is, how are these nonprofits going to change their model in order to to do what the members really want.
So you're recommending that the directorship to actually putting deals together and finding quality deals as opposed to putting together the beauty pageant pitch sessions that we have now.
Well, that would I would actually advocate most of the money has to be spent putting someone on an airplane to go make all those relationships so that the social network of the group has a far enough reach that you get the best deals. And so someone has to take on that responsibility first and foremost. And then once you get past that, then you need to find a person or persons that will really do the effort to vet what's found. So the real expense is creating the network and figuring out how to get plugged in so that you really see the best stuff and not just the stuff that stumbles in the door in your geographic area.
What do you think about crowdfunding? And now everything's going online, things are coming up on portals, and there's just a lot more, as you said, there's more deal flow out there, but at the same time, more of that deal flow is online. Back in the 90s, there was nothing online. Today, it's almost all online. So it can be found. You just have to, dig into these portals, and of course, more deals will come on portals with better information. I think the angel groups now use ProSeeder and used to use AngelSoft, Gus, but those are more like repositories of information. They aren't really crowdfunding portals. What's your take on that?
I'm kind of on the fence. I'm a little ambivalent about crowdfunding. I mean, I'm a lawyer by training, so I tend to be skeptical. Crowdfunding is interesting because it's opening up this whole investment class to more people in terms of securities regulation and everything else. My concerns is that most of these individuals don't have that kind of money to lose, number one. Number two, they're going to have to go through the same learning curve that really sophisticated angel investors have already gone through. And now that there's more of those people that can't afford to lose it, and I would argue that there is a higher likelihood of fraudulent type activity. Mm-hmm. And when I create that on balance, and I even think about, for example, if I'm a startup, if I'm properly advised by an attorney, he or she's probably going to tell me, look, do you really want a cap table with 1,000 people on it? I mean, that can present its own challenges for you running a company. So it's good in that it may allow you to raise capital more efficiently and quicker, but I think my premise and other people that have wrote on the topic, the premise is your investor is part of your team. And if all you have are people writing you checks, I think you have an incomplete team.
Well, that's a good point. It sounds like the key here is that we're if you're an angel investor, you're really going to have to join the team, get in there, get active, and make it work. I know from my experience, my first investment lost all my money, but I wasn't part of the team, never did anything for them, and made too many goofs, and they went away. Second team, I rolled up my sleeves, got in there, and actually met them every week for several years, helping them get through different hurdles and so forth, and got a nice return out of it. So there was a pretty strong correlation between the two as far as, work in versus return coming out makes a big difference as well. It just continues to evolve and change over time. One thing about crowdfunding is there's the unaccredited investors coming in, but then there's the technologies. The technologies coming out of crowdfunding can be very useful for angel groups, I believe, where you actually can share information through crowdfunding displays and portals. Like I say, the ProSeeders and the Gus software packages really are not crowdfunding tools. They're more databases for due diligence at the end of the day. And so it seems like better technologies would help this process as well.
Yeah, I mean, but the information is only as good as the people who ask for the right stuff, and it gets disseminated. So yes, it's a great tool to to have a repository, but someone has to know what to put in it.
Right. So I guess it goes back to the director really needs to be the lead investor, finding good deals, getting it packaged up and teed up for the rest of the group to come into it. And that's not always going to be in your own backyard for sure.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's been very helpful, very informative. Were there any other thoughts you had before we close out about angel investing, what it takes to be successful? It certainly aligns with my perspective that you have to be an active investor to get a real return out of it. Otherwise, you're just rolling the dice and you might as well be in Vegas, playing the roulette wheel. It's a lot more fun and a lot more action for sure, but maybe not more return by any means.
Well, if you want to be successful at angel investing, you have to be willing to put in the time. I mean, it's a full-time job. If you think you're going to show up once a month and have breakfast or have dinner with people that want to listen to stories, I don't know how that's going to work. But when you make it a full-time job, that's why you get the extraordinary returns when you do it well. As an angel, you're ultimately getting paid for the use of your capital and your time. As an angel, you're bringing your funds and your expertise. It's going to be industry expertise or functional expertise to bear on what the company's trying to achieve. So if you're the lead investor and all the team wants is your money, you probably ought to move on to another deal because it's almost always not a good fit. If you're not the lead investor in the deal, as we talked about before, you had better be following someone as the lead investor who's really going to get involved with the company and who you have a considerable relationship with, that you're able to trust their business and technical judgment as they help the team through. I got the opportunity last year to group came by, GrowthX. I mean, his basic premise was, we're going to make an investment. They're a small fund. We will make an investment in your deal, but here's what you get. You get our money, and we're going to help you figure out how to grow your sales so that you don't have to ask for a bunch more capital. And we're really good at helping you figure out how to sell your product. And based on the success of that, that's how this fund decides whether or not they're going to, do another round of investing. I mean, they have a very specific, I'm going to give you X, and these are the things you're going to have to prove with the money that's being handed to you. And if you succeed, you get more money. If you don't succeed, you better come back with a better story of what you learned and why it failed and what's your next plan. That needs to happen more often, I think.
So I guess the next generation angel group will be not just people with money, but people with money and expertise that they can apply. And so they're going to fit deals that need their expertise as well as the money, and now there's a more detailed match between the two. And I guess if you take a focus like sales or marketing or product development or something specific, and you only did deals that need that, there could be some efficiency that comes into it. You were talking a little while ago, I was wondering, well, how do I manage 25 people or 60 people each with 20 different companies all doing something different? It could be quite challenging to kind of keep up with all that stuff.
But if you have a group that you use as a fellow person you can ask a particular question about. So, for example, in an angel group I've been involved with, if I have a particular issue on, say, a patent thing, or I got a company that has this patent issue, can you tell me what to look for, what to do? It takes that person a couple hours at best to go, well, here are the main issues that we need to focus on, and it doesn't take that much time. Same thing for finance or tax or whatever your particular issue is. And an angel group of any significant size is going to have people that have that broad diversity. But the trick is, as a member, you have to know who all those people are. And I don't think, as a general rule, any of the angel groups I've ever seen, there's a real knowledge of who has what expertise, and and feeling that you can really call on them, because I think a lot of people are in these angel groups just to hear a good story rather than really wanting to get involved and do the work that's necessary.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. In the end, somebody's got to do the work, and there's certainly a correlation between returns and work in. So, well, I appreciate your taking time. Appreciate the insight that comes into it. Looking forward to seeing what comes out as the next step for angel groups and angel funds. And with that, we'll go ahead and close it out for now. Thank you so much.
All right. Enjoyed it.
Anyway.